They broke into my house while I was out of town for work, lived there for months, and tried to use squatters' rights against me. And here's the kicker. It wasn't some strangers. It was my own parents. Yeah, my mom and dad broke into my home and claimed it was theirs. I had to take them to court just to get them out. I'm 30 now, and to be honest, I never felt like I was supposed to exist. From what I've heard over the years, mostly from drunk uncles at weddings, I was an accident. My parents never wanted kids. They were one of those power couple types, always dressed in black, sipping wine, throwing around words like networking and legacy, and looking down their noses at pretty much everyone, including me. As a little kid, things weren't terrible. I guess I was still cute back then. But once I got old enough to have opinions or needs, yeah, that's when they started checking out. They ran a small business together and poured their lives into it. I was background noise. My birthdays? Usually spent alone with $20 and a pat on the head. Christmas? They gave up on trees after I turned 10. I had to convince them to buy a fake one just so I could feel something in the house. I asked to help at their business when I turned 16. Thought maybe it'd be a way to connect. They looked at me like I'd asked to join a private club. No openings. That's what they said. What they meant was, we don't want you here. And I got the message, loud and clear. The day after I graduated high school, they handed me a formal eviction notice, not even a conversation. Just 30 days to disappear. I barely had savings, no college plans. I crashed in a friend's backyard, in a tent, through winter. Worked whatever jobs I could find, mostly under the table. One manager fired me for no reason at all, just didn't like me. Corporate later fired him for stealing and chain-smoking in the stockroom, but by then, it was too late. I was unemployed and broke. I swallowed every ounce of pride I had and went back to my parents' doorstep. Asked for help. Just a place to stay while I got back on my feet. You know what they said? This isn't your problem anymore. You're a grown man. Then they slammed the door. Funny thing though, one of their neighbors, this sweet lady named Eleanor, found out I was living in a tent. She marched me right back to that front door and demanded. They give me the contact info for the rest of the family. They caved. Not out of compassion, but probably just to shut us up. Turns out my dad's parents, my grandparents, had been trying to reach out for years. I was their only grandkid. The second they heard what happened, they flew me out and took me in. Treated me like I actually mattered, like family should. They helped me get into community college, got me a job through my grandpa's old union buddies. And after a couple years, they asked if I'd want to buy their house. They were retiring to Florida, said the winters were too hard on them. They sold it to me for a third of what it was worth. No catch, no guilt, just love. And I worked hard, real hard. Paid the mortgage every month, kept the place up, started building a real life. Then, late 2020 hit. I'd been out of town for work, 2 weeks on the road. I get back, and there's this white van in my driveway. Didn't recognize it at first, until I saw the logo. My parents' old business. I froze. My stomach dropped. Walked up to the door, key in hand, heart pounding. And when I stepped inside, they were there. Sitting in my living room like they owned the place. My dad smiled and said, "You're back early." Like I'd just walked into a surprise party. I said, "Get out, now." But they wouldn't budge. Claimed it was their parents' house, and that meant it was theirs by right. I told them, calmly at first, that the house had been sold to me years ago, that they had no claim. They didn't care. My dad stood up and said, "You wouldn't have anything if it weren't for us." I locked myself in my bedroom and called the cops. They showed up. And guess what? The police couldn't do a damn thing. My parents claimed they'd been living there for over a month, claimed we had a verbal rental agreement. There were no cameras, no witnesses. It was their word against mine. And just like that, they were officially squatters. They were working again, my dad delivering packages, my mom at some retail gig, but refused to pay proper rent. Handed me $100 like it was a favor. Said I owed them for taking 18 years of their lives. Every time I tried to set boundaries, they pushed harder. My mom tried rearranging the furniture, demanded the master bedroom, said they deserved it because they were the elders. My dad just kept acting like this was all a misunderstanding. I called my grandparents in Florida. They were furious. Grandpa told my parents to pack up and go, but they wouldn't listen. Said they had rights. So I did the only thing I could. I filed for eviction. They fought it, claimed they were tenants, brought that $100 to court like it was evidence, tried to guilt-trip the judge. But they didn't have a lease, no written agreement, nothing. And they weren't dumb enough to forge one. Judge gave them 30 days. No extensions, no debate. They had to leave. After court, my mom cried in the parking lot. My dad told me I was heartless, said I'd regret it. I looked him right in the eye and said, "You kicked me out when I was just a kid. You didn't even help me carry my things. So don't come crying to me now." They went silent after that. But the tension was thick. I bought a giant wall calendar and crossed off each day in red ink. Marked the eviction day with a giant red circle. My mom glared at it every time she passed the hallway. They didn't even try to find a place until that final week. Ended up in a nasty little studio in the next city. No dishwasher. Puke green walls. Smelled like mildew. My mom looked at me like a kicked puppy when I helped her move a box. Said, "I guess this is what we deserve." I just shrugged. They asked if they could take the bed, the dresser, the TV from the guest room. I said, "Take whatever. Just get out." And when they finally left, I changed the locks, right there, as they sat in their van watching. Didn't speak, didn't wave. Just turned the screwdriver until the new doorknob clicked into place. They drove off, and I just stood there. Didn't cry, didn't cheer, just breathed. It was finally over. But here's the part that really messes with me. Few months later, I find out, from my grandparents, that my parents started a new business. Same kind of thing as before. And it's doing well. Positive reviews, money flowing in, back to their old smug selves. After everything they did, leaving me homeless, squatting in my house, trying to guilt me into submission, they bounced back. And I know I should let it go. I won. I got them out. I built my own life. But deep down, I still feel bitter. Still feel like karma missed a step. I don't hate them. I just don't believe they'll ever change. So I moved on. But I'll never forget. And to anyone listening, what would you do if you were me?